Hey, I'm Amy and welcome back. It is time once again to talk about what I watched last month or what I listened to, because if you did not know, there is a podcast playlist on Spotify that I have created with it's updated on a daily basis if you want to see what I listen to on a daily basis, or if I don't feel like watching anything, because I do that sometimes. I'll just listen to podcasts instead of watching movies. So if you want to check out my interests, check out this playlist for inspiration, because I do move things around. So if you're listening to it, it probably won't be the same thing every day, and you may miss something, or something that you're listening to may get deleted. But if you want to check out what I'm listening to, it's right there. It is also very similar to my movie tastes as well, like true crime, constantly, TV, pop culture, that kind of stuff. It's fun. But let's get started into my Letterboxd. If you want to follow me on my Letterboxd, linked in the description. But it is, basically the same as all my other social medias. So let's get started. There's a lot. Not as much as last time. I think I counted to it was 150 this month. So let's get started. I'm going to breeze through these so my camera battery doesn't die. It did twice last time I recorded. So let's get started. The first thing I watched last month was a short from the Safdie brothers called The Acquaintances of a Lonely John. It was on Criterion. I think it was newly added last month. I watched it because I think that was the last short from the Safdies I had to watch on Criterion. I think there's 2 short-ish features. They're maybe 50 something minutes. After that, I watched all 3 Austin Powers movies because I think they were either leaving HBO or I just wanted to rewatch and see if I remembered them, which I don't think I had watched any of them, but I'm not a huge Austin Powers fan. Apparently, I did not enjoy any of them. I also watched King Arthur, The Legend of the Sword. I did not enjoy that either. Slackers, Observe and Report, I believe were both leaving HBO, so I watched those as well. I watched Shang-Chi for the first time that month. I loved it. The next day, I watched Harry Potter and the Philosopher's... Well, it says Philosopher's Stone here. I call it the Sorcerer's Stone because I am in the United States. I am not British, but I went to a movie theater to see this, and it was the first time I'd seen it in a theater in 20 years since it first came out, and it was amazing. I loved it. The new Billie Eilish concert film came out on Disney Plus. I really enjoyed that as well. I love Billie Eilish. I watched the new Cinderella on Amazon Prime. It's not good at all. I started watching some 9/11 stuff. I watched this one from Apple TV Plus. It was okay. I watched the first episode of the 9/11 Docu-Series on Netflix and then completely forgot about it until just now. I watched a bunch of stuff from Criterion that was leaving, which is basically this whole page. And if you did not know, I watch a lot of things at 2 times speed to get through them quicker so I can get through more stuff. That's why I have 150 things I watched this month and all of these in one day. But I do have rules if I'm watching it for a movie review or my podcast, or it's a 1001 review, I will not watch it at 2 times speed. If I'm taking notes on it, I will not watch it at 2 times speed. Or if it's a new-ish movie, there's some newish movies that I will watch, like the Cinderella movie, the new one, I watched at 2 times speed because I knew it wasn't worth anything watching it at 1 time speed. It did not make a single difference. But I also process and pay attention to things more when they're at 2 times speed, whereas if it's 1 time speed, I feel like it's moving too slowly and I will lose focus. But I watched all of these on the 4th. They were all leaving Criterion, I believe. All of them. There was a couple 1001 movies that I checked off the list in here. I think Anatomy of a Murder, Scarface, Bob Le Flambeur, I think, was also on there. Was Moonstruck? Moonstruck was also 1001. So I think The Bird with the Crystal Plumage was also 1001, yeah. I think all of these, actually, except for Tongues Untied, were 1001 movies. And I think that I watched all 1001 movies. And then Cabaret, Gold Diggers, a lot of these I watched the next day were movies. Some of them were movies that were leaving HBO that were 1001. The Time Machine was not, but it was leaving HBO, and I really enjoyed it. I love 1950s, 1960s sci-fi. I think it's really cool. And then I started watching the James Bond movies again because they finally came back to Pluto TV for free. You have to watch them with ads, but it's okay. Then I watched a couple more movies that were leaving Criterion. This was also the same day that Jean-Paul Belmondo passed away, so I watched The Professional, which is probably my favorite Jean-Paul Belmondo movie, even though I really love Breathless. I love Breathless so much, but The Professional is really great. I think all of these were Criterions, that they were leaving Criterions. I think out of all of them, The Professional was my favorite. I really did not like The Squid and the Whale. It's a Noah Baumbach movie. It's got Jesse Eisenberg in it, and I am not the biggest fan of Jesse Eisenberg, but I also really did not like this movie. It rubbed me the wrong way the entire time. I watched Sky High for my podcast, The Nostalgia Effect. It was a great episode. I got to torture my co-hosts by watching a movie that they absolutely did not like, and I really loved. I love Sky High. It is a childhood favorite of mine. And then some more movies. I think Night Moves and Hedwig and the Angry Inch were leaving Criterion, so I watched those. And then I watched some. Clute was a 1001 leaving HBO. Gotta watch that. It was okay. I don't think it held. It did not, even watching it at 2 times speed, it did not hold my attention, but it was a very well-made film, and I may try to find it, see if it's somewhere else. Is it streaming anywhere else? It's still on HBO. Interesting. I thought it was leaving HBO, so I watched it. Maybe it's still on there. Maybe I'll rewatch it. And then some more movies that were leaving HBO. From Clute to Joel vs. Volcano, those were leaving HBO. And then Late Night Train and The Bedroom Window were leaving Criterion. The Mend was also leaving Criterion. I did not enjoy that much. It was kind of weird, but some people may enjoy it. Josh Lucas is in it. He's probably the only real name in this movie, but it's a very weird film. 24 by 36 is a film that you can watch free on YouTube with ads. I think I have YouTube Premium or whatever, so I don't get ads, but it's about poster making, and it's really cool, like film posters and stuff, and it's really interesting and cool if you enjoy movie posters. Some more, like My Super Ex-Girlfriend, that was leaving HBO. I watched it and I don't know why. It was terrible. It's got what's her face in it, Uma Thurman, Luke Wilson, Anna Faris. I didn't even realize that was Eddie Izzard. Rainn Wilson is in it. I did not enjoy it. It was a terrible movie. I rewatched Shang-Chi, gave it an even higher rating because I enjoyed it so much, like even more than I did the first time. And some more movies that were leaving Criterion. I watched Malignant, which was a lot better than I thought it was going to be. I was not thinking that it was going to be good. From the trailers, I'm not like a huge fan of James Wan's films like the Conjuring movies, those kind of spooky, spirity kind of possession movies. I thought that was kind of what it was going to be. It is a little bit, but it's a lot more like slashery, and there's some giallo elements in there, and it was really fun. I had a lot of fun with it. I also watched Kate and Plan B, which are 2 new movies. Kate is on Netflix, and it has Mary Elizabeth Winstead in it. It was okay. I think a lot of people liked it more than I did. And then Plan B, which is a movie on Hulu, and it was, I believe, written and directed by Natalie Morales. No, it was just directed by Natalie Morales, who also directed a movie that we were releasing at work called Language Lessons, and I really love Language Lessons, so I saw that she had also directed this, and it was released this year, so I thought might as well watch it because I really liked her directing and language lessons. If you have not seen Language Lessons, I highly recommend checking it out. I think it's available to rent pretty much everywhere, if I'm not mistaken, and I believe it's also in theaters, select theaters still. I rewatched The Avengers because I hadn't watched it in a while, and I was like, you know what? After watching a lot of What If episodes, I was like, I want to watch that again. It's been a while. And I watched the 3 movies I had left for the 1001 this past month, the 1001 video that I was going to do for patrons. If you did not know, every month I will give my producer patrons 4 to 5 movies from the list to pick out. They vote on which one they want me to do a review on. Then I will do a review on that one. I'll watch the rest in the list as well. And the movie that I do a review on, that video will get posted to all my patrons. So if you ever want to see what movies I'm doing for 1001 specifically that I will do a video on, check out my Patreon because there's a lot more stuff on there. There's a ton more stuff on Patreon. I do so much more on Patreon than I do here. And I watched some more, I think The Star Prince and The Women of Ryzan and The Blot and Electric Horseman were all leaving HBO, possibly? Some Criterion. Okay, so The Electric Horseman was leaving HBO, but the rest of them were leaving Criterion, so I watched those. Watched The Electric Horseman, which is a Jane Fonda and Robert Redford movie about a cowboy. It was pretty good. I didn't, enjoy it a ton, but it was pretty good. I mean, it was my 3.5 stars were mostly for Robert Redford and Jane Fonda. And then I watched the El Mariachi, I don't know what to call it, Robert Rodriguez El Mariachi trilogy. I did not like them. I realized while watching these 3, I do not like Robert Rodriguez unless it's Spy Kids. He is Quentin Tarantino light, especially in, there's another one that I watched later on where it's, I think it's no, it's not Once Upon a Time in Mexico. It's the one where Quentin Tarantino's actually in it and they do so much foot stuff and it's just very weird. I actually kind of enjoyed that one more than I enjoyed these El Mariachi ones, but we'll get to that in a second. Some more, I think, Final Analysis, Hardball, and Escape from New York were all leaving HBO, so I watched those. Peeping Tom was another 1001 movie that I watched for this month, and I watched some more Dinner at 8 and Wife vs. Secretary. I believe Cutter's Way were all leaving Criterion, so I watched those. And then from Dark Shadows all the way up to the 1999 House on Haunted Hill, those were all leaving HBO, so I watched those. Except for the original House on Haunted Hill, which I loved because I love Vincent Price, I love William Castle. I really enjoyed that. It's not leaving anything. I think it's still on Amazon Prime. But if you're going to watch House on Haunted Hill, watch that one because William Castle is a freaking genius. I love William Castle to death. I mean, The Tingler is one of my favorite movies, favorite horror movies of all time. He directed that. And I watched some more Criterion movies that were leaving, or movies that were leaving Criterion. I watched The Eyes of Tammy Faye. It's so good. This is the feature film, not the documentary. I want to watch the documentary that this is based on about Tammy Faye and her husband, but, well, I guess it's her ex-husband. I don't think it's anywhere to actually watch. The next day, I also watched Everybody's Talking About Jamie, which is a movie on Prime. It's a new movie on Prime about this boy in the UK. It's based on a true story, and he wants to become a drag queen, and it's so cute. It's a musical, and it's just so good. I highly recommend it. And I think On the Bowery is a movie that was leaving Criterion. I think it's like a sort of documentary, but it's like the way reality TV is documentary. It's scripted a little bit. There's parts that are scripted. It was okay. I mean, I gave it 3 stars because it kind of was it inspired a lot of things, and it was a little bit different than something that you had seen around that time, and it was, I don't know what the words are, they're on the tip of my tongue, but it was inspiration for future movies or future media like this. Haksan was the actual movie that, the 1001 movie I did do a review on. I loved it so much that when the November Criterion sale at Barnes & Noble happens, it will be one, if not the only thing, like it'll be one of, if not the only things that I'm getting. And I watched some more 1001 movies that were leaving, Oxhide, all the way up to, I think, Blood Simple. All of these were leaving Criterion, possibly. Old Enough was, The Eyes of Laura Mars, Farewell My Lovely, and Big Sleep I don't think were leaving. But they were ones that I had been wanting to watch for a while. Maybe some of these, I don't know, all of these on this that you're seeing right now were on Criterion or still are on Criterion. There are days where I'll just literally all I'll do is watch Criterion Channel movies. And then I watched Billy Madison for our new, for the Patreon. For the Patreon? No. I'm all over the place this morning. I'm sorry. For the podcast, for Nostalgia Effect, that was a really interesting episode because we talked about Norm Macdonald. We didn't plan this. We didn't plan to watch this after Norm Macdonald passed away, but we ended up talking about Norm Macdonald. He's also in this movie. And that was a good episode. And I watched some more movies that were leaving HBO. The Warriors, Tango and Cash, From Dusk Till Dawn, American History X, and Tequila Sunrise. From Dusk Till Dawn is the one I was thinking of that has Quentin Tarantino and who else is in this? Why am I blanking on George Clooney's name of all people? I actually thought I enjoyed that one a lot more than I thought I would for being a Robert Rodriguez movie with Quentin Tarantino in it. About halfway through, I think, is when it just starts going crazy and goes off the rails, and that's what I enjoyed about it. I also watched American History X, which I adore. I love it. Well, I adore it in the way that it is, I don't know how to put it. Like, it's just a really well-made film, and it really shows, I don't know how to explain why I love it so much. It's not like I condone what is happening, like what these characters believe, but I condone that Edward Norton's character basically was this asshole and became a good person. And yeah, I like the arc of it. And it's just such a really good film. And the person that this story, like Edward Norton's character, is based on, I actually listened to him talk in a podcast called Trust Me, where they talk about cults and how he was basically part of the skinhead cult. And yeah, it was really interesting and fascinating to listen to him talk, and then watching American History X to kind of see more of his story. And $1 Million Mermaid, I believe, was also leaving HBO. I also watched the new Lula Rich documentary or docu-series on Prime, which was basically about the LuLaRoe leggings clothing thing, which apparently they're still operating, which I did not realize that was still going on. But yeah, that was absolutely fascinating. I love a good pyramid scheme cult. And then I watched all of the new Nightmare movie. Oh, not all the new. I watched all of the Nightmare movies that are on HBO, except for the first one, because I have seen that before. I love it. I love the first Nightmare movie. Freddy Krueger is probably my favorite horror slasher villain, but I do love the Halloween series more than I like the Nightmare series. I did not watch the remake of Nightmare on Elm Street. That's still on my list to watch. I'll probably do that this month in October for Spooky Month. I watched 30 Minutes or Less as the bonus review on Patreon. That's also something I do. I will give my patrons a list of like 4 to 5 movies to vote on, and whichever one they pick, I'll do a review on for the bonus features tier on my Patreon. They picked 30 Minutes or Less this month, and I did not enjoy it. Again, not a big fan of Jesse Eisenberg. And some more movies that they think some of these were on, like The Guilt Trip and Buddy Games. They were recommended to me on Hulu after watching 30 Minutes or Less. So I was like, you know what? I'll watch them. Guilt Trip was cute. I mean, Barbra Streisand is, I love Barb. I love Babs. She's great. Buddy Games was not good, even though James Rodriguez is in it. He was not as funny as he is in Psych. We all know how much I love Psych. Psych is one of my favorite TV shows of all time. Very upsetting. and some more James Bond movies. I'm almost done. I think all I have left are the Daniel Craig ones, except for one Daniel Craig one, not counting No Time to Die, which I will be watching all the Daniel Craig ones this week because we're doing Skyfall for the podcast next week. Well, we're recording the podcast this week, but it'll be live next week. And I watched Alien Encounters from New Tomorrowland, which this is a documentary that was produced by Disney about UFOs and aliens just to promote a ride in Tomorrowland at Disney World. And I watched it mostly because, Disneyland's 50th anniversary was on the 1st of October. I love Disney World's 50th anniversary was on the 1st of October. I love Disney World. I grew up going to Disney World. I've ridden Alien Encounter before I got turned into Stitch's Great Escape, which I also rode that. They're both terrifying. They're both closed now because they're terrible. I also watched The 24 Faces of Billy Milligan, which, oh my god, if you like serial killers, if you like psychology, this is a docu-series to watch. It's on Netflix. It is so fascinating. I love psychology. I really wish I had done more psychology when I was in school, especially film psychology, which I have this book that I've been meaning to read, I think for probably 2 years now. It was in a haul a long time ago, and this is about as far as I got, was bookmarking the places that I wanted to check out. But God, I love psychology. It's so fascinating, especially serial killer, why they do what they do. But this one was really interesting because it was about dissociative identity disorder, or at the time, I believe they called it multiple personality disorder, and it factored in a lot to how this man was convicted and treated along the way, and they also were learning a lot about multiple personality disorder / dissociative identity disorder through this man. So it was really fascinating to follow that along. They talked to a bunch of different psychologists and psychiatrists and detectives, and it was fascinating. They talked to his relatives as well. It was really cool. And then here are probably some of my least favorite Bond movies. I did not have a fun time with any of these. GoldenEye was probably my favorite. These are why am I Pierce Brosnan? I'm forgetting everybody's name this morning. I need coffee. I haven't had coffee yet. But I did not enjoy the Pierce Brosnan ones. I think License to Kill was the last one that I needed for the Roger Moore? Yeah. Timothy Dalton ones. Yeah. But yeah, by the time I got to the last one, Die Another Day, I was just so fed up with how womanizing James Bond is. And I know people had warned me, my friends had warned me, they're not going to like how womanizing James Bond can be. This is when I started, with Pierce Brosnan is when I started really getting annoyed with it, because it was just he would meet a woman, they would flirt, and then 5 minutes later, they were in bed, and it was just, God, it's so dumb. I did not like it. I only have seen one Daniel Craig movie. I really liked it. It was Casino Royale. So we'll see how it goes from there. And then I watched the new Britney versus Spears documentary on Netflix. Really good. Free Britney. Love Britney. I still need to watch the New York Times follow-up on Hulu. I watched the original one. I think it was from ABC News. Maybe it was the New York Times one, and there's a follow-up on it. I don't know. There's some more Britney stuff on Hulu that I need to check out. And then I watched the Paradise Lost Trilogy from HBO. So good. Oh my gosh. It is scored by Metallica. There are, Metallica made songs for this. It's really, the story is really good. It's about these 3 teenagers who are convicted wrongly of killing these 3, I think they're 8-year-old boys in West Virginia, maybe. I don't remember exactly where it was, but it was in sort of the South, and it's just their journey basically from their conviction in 1994, I believe, all the way through them getting released in, I think it was in 2000, and was it in 2010? I don't remember the exact dates, but really good. I really hope that they do a fourth one soon, if anything has happened in the case in the past 10 years. But it's really fascinating. If you like true crime, and you have HBO, this is a trilogy you need to watch. It's 2 hours for each episode, and it's absolutely fascinating. I could not recommend it higher. And then I watched also on that day the Mccartney Docu-Series on Hulu. Really, really fascinating to hear Paul McCartney talk about the Beatles' discography, some of his solo stuff in such depth and enthusiasm, and he has such a great memory. I think he's 70 something now. Maybe he's even 80. I don't know. But I have a terrible memory, so it was fascinating to me to hear someone talk about something that happened in the 70s, and I can barely talk about what happened in the past 2 years. And I watched another true crime, the Miami Showman Massacre. It's about there's this, I don't know if I could really or should really explain it, because I am not Irish. I do not live in the UK. I do not have any say or any knowledge besides what they talked about in this documentary about the fight in it's kind of almost a civil war in Ireland, I think. I don't know. I have no knowledge. But anyways, it's fascinating if you like true crime. It's about a band that gets murdered, or there's specific members of the band get murdered because of their religion. I also had listened to a podcast that was very similar along the lines of this from the podcast Small Town Dicks. It's hosted by Yardley Smith, the voice of Lisa Simpson. Also a fantastic true crime listen if you are interested. It's not, the podcast wasn't about this specific event. It was about something similar, because this girl was killed because of her religion and affiliation politically. It's kind of confusing to me, but if you watch it, you'll understand. I watched another true crime documentary on Netflix, Abducted in Plain Sight. Really, really good. And to round out that day, I watched The Lady in the Dale, which is a fascinating docu-series on HBO about that three-wheeled car and the woman who sold it. It gives a lot of her backstory when she was a man and her running from the law, and then how she transitioned into being a woman and her life while running the company, and her family. They talked to her youngest daughter, I believe, her youngest daughter and her youngest son and one of her granddaughters, and just their whole it's absolutely fascinating. It blew my mind. So good. And then to round out that day, I watched all of the Star Wars Vision episodes. Not about Vision, like Vision the Marvel character. These are all Japanese animated short films based on Star Wars. They are not canon within the Star Wars universe, but they are beautiful and fascinating, and you can watch them in English. I know there is a celebrity's worth of English-speaking cast, but I watched them in Japanese because it felt wrong not to be watching anime in Japanese if it's available, especially the first one, The Duel. It is very Akira Kurosawa. The animation style plus the story as well, it feels very much like it was made by Kurosawa, even though he could not have made it. But they're all great. Tatooine Rhapsody was probably my favorite, even though it does not have the same rating as The Duel, but it is basically a pop punk Star Wars. Jabba the Hutt's there. They're in Tatooine. They're on the speeder bike racetrack, and I want to rewatch it in English just because I want to hear the lyrics of the song in English, even though it's really cool in Japanese. They vary in how much I enjoyed them, but I did enjoy the entire thing. The last things I watched on the last day of September were the first Venom. I rewatched it. I don't know why I did. I know I hate that movie. If I had a choice between being forced, if I could only watch, or if I had to pick one to watch between Venom and Aquaman, two of my least favorite superhero movies of all time. Actually, I think two of my least favorite movies of all time. I hate them with a passion. I would watch Aquaman over this, even though Aquaman is a mess, but Venom is also a mess. I then watched the new Venom, Let There Be Carnage. Despite what my rating says, 2.5 out of 5 stars is very generous for this movie for me. I think I gave it that much because of how much I hated the first Venom. Andy Serkis directed this Venom, and it's the first time I'd watched anything Andy Serkis has directed. I think he's only directed like one other thing. Okay, Breathe. What's that? Don't think I've ever heard of this. Oh, Andrew Garfield's in it. Claire Foy. Wow. Okay, maybe I will have to watch this. It's on Netflix, but I have not watched this Mowgli movie that he directed a couple years ago. Christian Bale's in it. Wow. Well, yeah, so I haven't watched anything that Andy Serkis has directed outside of Venom, Let There Be Carnage, and I was pleasantly surprised by it. It got a lot more laughs out of me than the first one did. The relationship that they built between Venom and Eddie is really great. They're very much like a symbiotic relationship now. Haha, pun. But it's still, I probably would never watch it again. It's not as bad as the first one, but I probably wouldn't watch it again. That is everything that I watched this month. It's a lot. I tried to go through it as fast as I could. I will probably be watching a lot more because I got the list of everything that's leaving Criterion, the list of everything that's leaving HBO. There's a lot. I will be watching as much of it as I can. It's usually what my my Letterboxd is things that are leaving Criterion and HBO, or if I find something I feel like watching. I will probably finish off, I think What If ends in 2 weeks, so I'll be finishing that off, and I'll be logging that because I don't log it until I've watched the entire thing. So there's some stuff going on. And there's also a lot of movies coming out in October, so October's gonna be pretty packed as well. I hope you guys enjoyed. Let me know what you guys watched this month in the comments down below, what your favorite things were. Give me some recommendations for what I should watch this month. And of course, if you want to check out what I watched, you can check my Letterboxd, what I listened to. I have that Spotify playlist. I don't watch a ton of TV anymore. Usually it's just Twitch or an episode of Burn Notice in the morning when I work out. Thank you guys so much for listening, watching, whatever. I need coffee. I'll go get some coffee. But thank you guys so much for watching. I really, truly do appreciate you. Whoever you are, let me know who you're in the comments down below. And let's be friends. If you enjoyed this, leave a like and subscribe if you're new because I love talking movies, TV shows, filmmaking, history, all that fun stuff. And I'll see you next time. Bye.